Thank you for joining us. My name is Alexander Shalom. I'm a partner at Lowenstein Sandler, and I chair the Lowenstein Center for the Public Interest. Today, I'm proud to announce that the NAACP, Latino Action Network, and the Latino Coalition of New Jersey have filed a landmark civil rights lawsuit against the state of New Jersey, the Department of Banking and Insurance. My colleague Parmal Gargai will serve as counsel in this case. The plaintiffs are challenging the state's continued approval of auto insurance practices that allow companies to use education and occupation to set car insurance rates, a system that violates the New Jersey Constitution, state anti-discrimination laws, and the department's own regulations. These factors, education and occupation, have nothing to do with how safely someone drives. All they measure are race and income, rewarding white-collar, college-educated drivers while penalizing essential workers, service employees, and working families with rates that can be more than 40% higher. The cost of these income proxies falls disproportionately on New Jersey's Black and Latino drivers. Now, these plaintiffs did not make the decision to sue the government lightly. For years, these civil rights organizations worked with state leaders to find solutions. But after decades of advocacy, letter writing, and meetings without meaningful change, they were left with no choice. When the government fails to act, the court becomes the only path to accountability. This case challenges a system that punishes people for who they are instead of how they drive. It's about fairness, accountability, and equal protection under the law. With that, it is my honor to introduce the first speaker, my friend Richard Smith, president of the NAACP's New Jersey Stores office.
Thank you. Good evening. Well, good afternoon. Thank you, Alex. The NAACP has been and remains the most powerful civil rights organization in this nation because we are built on more than a century of unwavering commitment to justice, equality, and the protection of civil and human rights for all people. Our power comes from our people, from our local branches and communities, large and small, to our youth and college divisions, to our state and national leadership. The NAACP is not a movement of one moment or one moment or one leader. It is a movement of millions. Together, we form a network of advocates, voters, educators, and everyday citizens who refuse to be silent in the face of injustice. Our power comes from our record. For 116 years, the NAACP has fought and won some of the most consequential battles for civil rights in American history. From the desegregation of public schools, to the passage of the Civil Rights and Voting Rights Act, to today's battles for police accountability, fair housing, equitable education, and economic justice. We have never shied away from the hard fights, and we never will. Our power comes from our principles. We are nonpartisan, but never neutral when it comes to justice. We stand firm on the side of fairness, equality, and opportunity. Our voice carries because it is grounded in truth, history that they're trying to steal, and a moral vision for this country that includes everyone. And our power comes from our presence. Here in New Jersey and across the nation, the NAACP continues to show up at the ballot box, in the courtroom, in the streets, because we understand that freedom is not self-sustaining. It requires constant vigilance and collective action. Today, the NAACP New Jersey State Conference stands firmly on the side of fairness, equity, and justice for every New Jersey driver. For far too long, auto insurance companies have used practices that unfairly burden Black and brown folk and working class communities. Practices like basing premiums on education and occupation and other factors that have nothing to do with how safely someone drives. Let's be clear. The number of years of formal education or a person's job title should not determine how much they pay to insure their car. These so-called risk factors are thinly veiled forms of discrimination that perpetuate the racial and economic inequities our communities have battled for generations. This lawsuit is about more than insurance rates. It's about justice. It's about dismantling systems that quietly but powerfully keep our communities at a disadvantage. When a single mother in Newark, Trenton, or Camden has to pay double what someone in a wealthier suburb pays for the same coverage and the same driving record, that is not fair, that is not equal, and it's not accepted. The NAACP has a long and proud history of fighting systemic discrimination in housing, in employment, in education, and in lending, and now we add this fight to that legacy. We are calling on the state of New Jersey, regulators, and insurers themselves to end these unjust practices and to ensure that every driver in New Jersey is treated with dignity, respect, and fairness under the law. We will not rest until every family in New Jersey can access affordable auto insurance based on how they drive, not where they live or what's in their wallet. We are going to fight for them, always realizing that our work is not finished and our will is unbroken. It's now my honor to introduce Javier Robles, co-plaintiff and the president of the Latino Action Network. Javier.
Buenos días, buenas tardes, good afternoon. The Latino Action Network is dedicated to breaking down the systemic barriers that hold working class and Latino families across the state. This lawsuit is the next step in that fight. For 2 decades, we've advocated for equity in education, housing, and now economic access, because the same patterns of inequity continue to repeat themselves across any system. The difference today is that we have the data to prove it. Latinos account for nearly 1 in 5 Americans, and here in New Jersey, our community accounts for more than 22% of the population. That's 2 million people who drive, work, and contribute to our state's economy every single day. Across the country, Latinos are starting businesses at twice the rate of the general population, generating $3.2 billion in GDP. To put that in perspective, if the U.S. Latino economy were its own country, it would rank as the 5th largest economy in the world. And yet, despite economic strength, Latinos still pay more for basic financial services, including car insurance. Let's be clear, when insurance uses your job title or education level to determine what you have to pay for auto insurance, they're not measuring risk, they're measuring privilege, and they're charging a premium to people that have less coverage. They are generating billions of dollars in profits while at the same time committing auto insurance economic apartheid. Here's what it looks like in New Jersey. Latinos make up 22% of the labor force, yet more than 50% hold jobs that don't require a college degree. When the drivers, teachers, aides, healthcare providers, and small business owners who keep the state running through every crisis, often working on the front lines. The New Jersey Office of Diversity and Economic Growth reports that Latino-owned businesses now employ more than 120,000 New Jerseys and generate over $20 billion in annual sales. Yet Latino households here still have a median income of $20,000 lower than their white counterparts. According to the New Jersey Institute for Social Justice, Latinos drive New Jersey's growth. We should not have to pay more just to drive its roads. Like our partners at the NAACP, we know both the State House and the courtroom, and we're not afraid to show up in either. We are proud to stand united with the NAACP in the Latino Action Network versus the state of New Jersey, the ongoing case challenging school segregation. Because whether it's education, housing, or now insurance, the patterns of inequity are the same. When government fails to protect families and communities of color, we will turn to the courts for accountability. Allowing insurers to use education and occupation to set rate, tells our communities that the work we do is not valued. I don't have to worry about this in class because I would use these things, but wow. So, you get after. I think I'm good. Your job title should have decided your auto insurance rate. That's just unfair. It's unconstitutional. When data is used to disguise discrimination, it's still discrimination. This lawsuit says enough bias, enough excuses, enough discrimination disguised as data. I would now like to take a moment to introduce mi hermano, Frank Argote Freire, who is the Director Emeritus of the Latino Coalition of New Jersey. Come out there.
Thank you, Javi.
So I did tell you how proud I am to be here today. I want to thank the law firm of Lowenstein and Sandler for taking up this case. I'm always honored to be with my colleagues at the NAACP and the Latino Action Network. And as noted, I am the Director Emeritus of the Latino Coalition. I just stepped down after 22 years last month. My last act as director was to authorize participation in this lawsuit. I'm really, really proud about that. I want to also note that the Latino Coalition, we're also participants in the lawsuit against the state of New Jersey with regards to desegregation in New Jersey's school. I have to say that in top of my gray hair at this point in my career, I have sued just about everybody in the state of New Jersey, Republican and Democrat. So it's quite something. The new director of the coalition, Lázaro Cárdenas, couldn't be here, and he sends his regrets. So the Latino Coalition, as I said, is proud to stand with our partners in demanding fairness for every driver in New Jersey. We represent thousands of families who work hard every day to keep this state moving. Laborers, small business owners, and essential workers. These are the people who get up before sunrise, who care for our parents, who keep the shelves in the supermarkets stocked. They keep our classroom clean. And I know that from Kane University. All of our workers, most of them are, from the Latino and African American communities. And construction project on schedule. We represent the fastest growing share of New Jersey's workforce and nearly 1 in 4 small business owners. These folks here who we're going to court for, they make New Jersey work. So nationally, Latinos make up 18% or 31 million workers. In the U.S. labor force, we hold, 1 out of every 4 jobs in construction, food service, healthcare support, and transportation. During the pandemic, more than 70% of Latinos were deemed essential workers. So essentially, we kept the lights working. We kept the economy going. And yet, when it comes to the systems that decide how much we pay for something like auto insurance, they still treat us as if we are a risk. When New Jersey allows insurers to charge higher rates based on education or job title, it punishes the very people who make New Jersey work, many of them the working poor. And you have to ask yourself, what does how much your pay salary is have to do with your, whether you're prone to more or less car accidents? It's got nothing to do with it. So a home health aide should not pay more for car insurance than a health care executive with the same driving record. It should be about the driving record. That is not risk-based pricing. That is bias, plain and simple. And that creates costs that go beyond dollars. When a family spends thousands more each year on car insurance just to get to work, that's money they don't spend on housing, on college expenses, on groceries. That's money right out of their pocket. Hard work should open doors, not raise premiums. When the people who build New Jersey cannot afford to drive in it, something is deeply wrong. And it's time to make that right. And that's what we hope this lawsuit is going to do. And so we're calling on the state of New Jersey to end this discriminatory practice. Discrimination, there's no other word for it, once and for all. And to ensure that every driver, regardless of income or job title, can access fair and affordable car insurance coverage. So I thank you all for coming here today. I don't think we have another spoke. Alexander, you're back. Okay. I welcome back Alexander Shalom.
Frank, I just want to say not everyone gets gray hair from suing Republicans and Democrats. There are solutions to that. Get that. I want to thank the plaintiffs in this case for your courage and for sharing your voices. Change only happens when people are willing to stand up and be heard, and that's exactly what you've done today. Now we're going to hear from a consumer advocate who can speak to just how widespread and damaging this practice has become. And then we're going to hear from a moral leader to explain to us why reform cannot wait another day. So please welcome Chuck Bell, Advocacy Programs Director at Consumer Reports.
Thanks so much. So over the last 10 years at Consumer Reports, we've been analyzing insurance pricing practices across the country, and we see an unmistakable pattern. Drivers with clean records but working-class jobs or less formal education often pay hundreds and sometimes even thousands more extra every year for the same coverage as their college-educated peers with the same driving history. Here in New Jersey, from research that we did in 2022, we know that those price gaps can reach as much as 40%. A driver with a high school diploma and a spotless record can expect to pay far more than a college graduate with an identical driving history. In 2022, we found that in Hoboken, Geico quoted a hypothetical cashier without a high school degree an annual premium that was $455 higher than an identical driver with an advanced degree and an executive title. These are not isolated examples. These are systematic patterns that punish people for their socioeconomic backgrounds instead of their driving behavior. They hit hardest in communities of color, among single parents, and in households that are already far stretched to make ends meet. Now, in New Jersey in 2022, we also saw that there were some 1.7 million workers with incomes under $40,000 occupying occupations where they were especially likely to be surcharged for having less education or having a lower ranking occupational title. That's a quarter of the workforce. And the state insurance department should be looking out for the interests of that part of the workforce. As was noted, they were found to be essential during the pandemic, but they're being excluded from fair auto insurance pricing and from wealth building in the American dream. But these workers included essential job categories such as home care workers, medical assistants, child care workers, building maintenance and groundskeeping workers, bank tellers, warehouse or manufacturing workers, delivery drivers, cashiers and food retail service workers, and small business owners. So it's time for New Jersey to join the growing number of states that have banned the use of education and occupation for auto insurance pricing. 8 states have banned it for education. We think at least 7 for occupation. In the New York, where I'm from, we banned it in 2018. So we've already had 7 years with this ban in New York State. We're right across the river. I don't see any reason why New Jersey should allow these practices to persist. Fairness should not depend on your resume. It should depend on your driving record. Consumers want to be priced by the way that we drive, not who the auto insurance company thinks that we are. So we need insurance to measure the actual risk of driving on the road and not reinforce inequality. So thank you so much to the plaintiffs, NAACP, Latino Action Network, and Latino Coalition for your leadership in holding the state accountable. And next, I'd like to introduce Reverend Eric Dobson, who is a tireless advocate for economic, racial, and social justice here in New Jersey.
Thank you, Chuck. Thank you to the local work that the Consumer Reports does throughout this nation. I'm a member of Consumer Reports. I always go to them to look for advice when I'm buying something. This honor and privilege for me to be here with Alex Perlmutter and my good friend Richard Smith, Frank Javier, Latino Action Network, bringing this lawsuit. I have the distinct honor and burden of being a faith leader. And I say burden because in some of the times in people's darkest moments, they come to me to either do funerals, ask for spiritual advice, which I'm not allowed to ask me, and seek things out when they're struggling. And it's at those moments where I have to see clearly to give advice to someone who's hurting, to someone who is seeking support, information, understanding about what God requires of them in these moments. And I never forget this one particular time I walked into the church and this young lady came running up to me, Pastor Eric, Pastor Eric. She had tears in her eyes. I said, what's wrong? She said, I got my paycheck and I have to make a decision. Do I only have enough money to pay my tithes and offering, which if you all know in the religious community, how tithes and offering is very important. Your duty to God to support the ministry. I only have money to pay one, my tithes and offering or my car insurance. We heard a lot of numbers up here today and why this lawsuit is important. But one of the most important things about this lawsuit, people are making moral decisions about their relationship to the church, their relationship to God, or whether to drive legally. Those are real life choices and decisions. So this is not a lawsuit about numbers. It's about real life choices and decisions. This woman came up to me with tears in her eyes. I have to do something. I don't want to be in God's eyesight looking bad. I don't want to let the church down, but my car insurance is due. Which one should I pay? And I had to see clearly. I had to see clearly to give this woman advice of what was her responsibility to do. And I said, you know what? Pay the car insurance. God understands. Why I bring that story up? Because people are making decisions because they can't afford car insurance because we're using illegal practices to determine how much they pay. This is not a game. People's faith are on the line. People believe their relationship to God is depending on whether they can afford car insurance or not. So let me close by this, because I'm a preacher. I can be up here long. I'm calling on this state. And I'm hopeful that this state will take in consideration the historical nature of discrimination in insurance. I'm hopeful that this state will take the opportunity to look at that and say, you know what? We have an obligation to uphold the law, the Constitution that tells them they should be doing what they're doing. I'm hopeful that this state will put people first over profits. I got on him and him. I'm hopeful that the state will recognize that your education, occupation, and credit score has nothing to do whether you're a good driver or not. I'm hopeful to that. If this lawsuit were real fruitfulness, that people won't have to decide whether to pay their mortgage, whether to buy food, or their relationship to God is depending on whether they can afford car insurance or not. I'm hopeful. Thank you very much.
has made a career of not putting myself in a position to have to speak after every adoption there in the state, but I will wisely wrap up quickly. I want to thank all of our speakers, all of the plaintiffs, every advocate who has carried this fight forward. We look forward to seeing justice served in the courtroom, and to a day when every driver in New Jersey is treated fairly based on how they drive, not the title they hold. And we look forward to a day when fairness isn't debated, it's delivered. Thank you all for being here.